MK Dons, arguably the most hated team in the entire country. But why? Today we're going to take a look as to why this unsuspecting League 2 team is hated by nearly everyone in the entire UK. Sources will be cited in the description below in a Google Doc called MKDVE sources. We have to start in 1889 with Old Centrals. This team was based in southwest London and they were a non-league side. This football team is made up of South Londoners and get their name from the Old Central School on Wimbledon Common. Wimbledon Common also hosted Fulham FC's home games during the 1885-86 season, which saw them compete in the West London League. This league also hosted a fellow London team and current EFL member, Queen's Park Rangers. The Old Central School's headmaster, William Selby, was Wimbledon Old Central's first ever chairman. He oversaw the club's first ever game, which was a 1-0 victory over Westminster. With this name, Old Centrals won the Herald League in 1895-96 and the Clapham League twice. Along with this, they also won 2 unnamed minor trophies. On the 1st of May 1905, they held a meeting and decided to drop the Old Centrals from their name, which proved a fairly good decision, as later that same year they won the South London Charity Cup. In 1910, the first in Wimbledon's very long history of financial troubles meant the club folded in that same year, but were restarted again in 1911 under the name Wimbledon Borough, although the borough was very swiftly dropped. Around a year after the Phoenix Club began, they settled in the well-renowned Plough Lane, which they stayed at until 1991. They spent around 50 years in the non-league. Some notable highlights are finishing as runners up in the FA Amateur Cup in 1946-47, and they also won the Isthmian League 4 times in 6 years, starting in 1930-31 and ending in 1935-36. Only missing 1932, 33 and 33-34. They also won the Isthmian League 3 years in a row, from 1961-62 season all the way to the 63-64 season. Following the sheer amount of non-league success, the decision was taken to turn the club professional and join the Southern League. They came runners-up during their first season in the division. In the 74-75 season, entering the competition, the FA Cup that is, at the first qualifying round, they saw Bracknell, who are another historic team, and they fought battles against Maidenhead, Workingham, Guildford and Dorking United, and Bath City and Kettering Town. After that run, they found themselves in the first round problem, becoming the first non-league side to reach that level in the competition in 75 years. They beat first division side Burnley at Turf Moor, and they held Leeds to a 0-0 draw at Ellen Road. Wimbledon keeper Dickie Guy saving Pete Lorimer's penalty before losing 1-0 in front of 40,000 fans at Selhurst Park, only due to an own goal. Won the Southern League 3 times running from 1974-75 to 1976-77. This was good enough for the FA to elect them into the Football League for the first time in the place of equally historic club Workington. In their first EFL season, they finished 13th in the 4th division, and Alan Batsford resigned and was succeeded by a disgraced manager and coach, Dario Gradi, who was caught in the UK football sexual abuse scandal. We won't go into that too much because I really don't want to, it's not nice. When they were relegated the following season, Ron Node entered talks with the Milton Keynes Development Corporation about the possibility of moving the club, but it just didn't come to fruition. During the 1980-81 season, saw Ron Nodes walk out of the club to take over at Crystal Palace, and he took manager Dario Gradi with him. From this, Dave Bassett was promoted to first team coach. Under Bassett, the club was relegated in 22nd place, but unfortunately just for the survival battle was lost. 5-time England international Dave Clement committed suicide. In 1985-86, after very quick promotions from the 4th, 3rd and 2nd division, sold in the 1st division only 9 years after being elected into the Football League. It was around the time that the Crazy Gang was coined due to their tough and fiery style of play. This included players like John Fashanu, Vinnie Jones, Dave Besant, Dennis Wise, Laurie Sanchez, Terry Felon and Wally Downs. Speaking of Wally Downs, he went on to manage AFC Wimbledon during the 2018-19 season. Under Downs, they successfully escaped relegation from League One into League Two on the final day, clutching 21 points from their final 12 games. On the 25th of September 2019, the club suspended him from his duties due to charges of misconduct after FA Rule E1B, for placing 8 small bets on different Football League matches between the 30th of November 2013 and 12th of July 2019. The FA issued down a fine of £3,000 and a 4-week ban from football. In October, he pleaded guilty to all charges. Following this, he and the club separated ways. During that same 2018-19 season, their Milton Keynes counterparts were reintroduced into League One after coming third in League Two under manager Paul Tisdale. Lawrie Sanchez also managed Wimbledon reserves. After winning the Football Combination League, he stepped up to first team coach under Joe Kinnear in 1997, but 2 years later they both departed. Joe left for Luton and away went on to be manager of future MK Dons rivals and former Buckinghamshire club, Wycombe Wanderers. Some information on the first player who was on that list, John Fashanu. He was the brother of former Notts County and Leatherhead forward, who was also capped by England at under 21 level, Justin Fashanu. Justin agreed with The Sun to release his coming out story, and on the 22nd of October 1990, The Sun ran with the headline, £1 million football star, I am gay. He also claimed he had an affair with a married Conservative MP, but that was never proved. John formally disowned his brother. In 1998, a 17-year-old claimed to have been sexually assaulted by Justin. He subsequently fled to England, and on the 3rd of May, 37-year-old Justin Fashanu hung himself. John Fashanu later expressed regret over some of the comments he made when his brother came out, but in an interview with TalkSport in 2012, John claimed his brother was not gay and was merely an attention seeker. So he changed his mind 3 times? In lighter news, we'll backtrack about 10 years. In 1988, the club's most well-known and greatest moment was the FA Cup, which they won. On the way to the final, they beat West Brom, Mansfield, Newcastle, Watford and Luton, before reaching a final against Liverpool, also known at the time called the Culture Club, in front of 98,203 people at a packed-out Wembley Stadium. So I've got a match summary here from Wikipedia. I'll just read it out to all of you. Wimbledon took the lead shortly before half-time when Lawrie Sanchez's looping header from a Dennis Wise free kick on the left went across goalkeeper Bruce Grobbelaar and into the net. Liverpool created a host of chances, including the chip goal over the goalkeeper by Peter Beardsley, which was disallowed as the referee had already awarded a free kick to Liverpool, but were unable to find a way past Wimbledon goalkeeper Dave Beasant. The Merseysiders were awarded a penalty on the hour mark following a foul by Clive Goodyear on John Aldridge. However, Aldridge's penalty was saved by Beasant's diving save to his left. So not Taker's left, it would be Taker's right. Thus Beasant became the first keeper to save a penalty in a Wembley FA Cup final. The Londoners survived more pressure from Liverpool to secure their first major trophy and to create a notable upset in FA Cup final history. Captain Dave Beasant became the second goalkeeper to lift the FA Cup as a result. Royal Engineers goalkeeper and captain Major William Merriman lifted the cup in 1875. After the final whistle, John Motson, who was commentating for the BBC, delivered this famous line: "The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club." Just kind of imagine that with a lot of roars in the background. It makes it sound so much cooler. Not long after this, the Premier League was introduced and Plough Lane was deemed to be unsafe, so they had to move ground. And thankfully, only one London borough over, they started a 12-year ground share with Ron Node's new club, Crystal Palace, which they left in 2003 to move to MK and spent one season at National Hockey Stadium. And after that, we'll go on to that a bit later. 12 years after their best ever day in their history is when the beginning of the end spelled across the wall. The team were relegated to the first division, which is down at the Championship. After missing out on playoffs 2 years in a row, the club announced its intent to move to Milton Keynes. So this would have been in 2000-ish, yeah. There was a short-lived dream of moving the club to Dublin and renaming to the Dublin Dons. This was met with anger by the Wimbledon fans and was soon brushed aside, with the move to MK looking like a more feasible and realistic option. The 8th of May 2002, after a vote which ended 2-1 by a 3-person independent commission appointed by the FA, they decided to move to Milton Keynes, Wimbledon that is. This decision royally angered old Wimbledon fans, who decided to start a Phoenix club called AFC Wimbledon, which in the 2002-03 season they started in the Combined Counties League Premier Division, the 10th tier of English football. But 10 years later they did inevitably reach the EFL League 2, and they've been a Football League side ever since, bouncing around League 1 and 2. The Phoenix club made Wimbledon fans switch their allegiance to AFC, with gates at the new club, Dons, being over 3,500, eclipsing 2,500 at the new club, AFC, who by this time was still playing at Selhurst Park, Dons, and ground sharing with Crystal Palace. MK Dons goalkeeper coach at the time, Stuart Murdoch, became their first ever manager. Although crowds are bigger at the new base, the administrator in charge of Wimbledon sold any player that could command the transfer fee. This made it so Stuart Murdoch's team would finish bottom of their league. At the end of the 2003-04 season, the club was brought out of administration and Milton Keynes Dons were founded in the club's place. A different, more other club called MK City, my local Sunday side, actually founded in 2003 due to a confusing situation surrounding MK Dons and Wimbledon. This shows how much it's affected not only Dons and Wimbledon but football in Milton Keynes. It sent off a bit of a shake everywhere. Everyone was a little bit panicked with what would happen. By 2005 they were thankfully refounded as a youth football side. This move, MK Dons becoming MK Dons, was spearheaded massively by current MK Dons chairman and owner Peter Winkelman. The MK Dons made a debut in Football League 1 during the 2004-05 season with Stuart Murdoch as their manager. Their inaugural match was a 1-1 draw against Barnsley, with Isaiah McLeod scoring their first competitive goal. However, Murdoch was dismissed in November, replaced by Danny Wilson, who managed to keep them up on the final day of the season, thanks in part to Wrexham's 10-point deduction. They got that for entering administration. The following season proved to be a struggle for the Dons, resulting in a relegation to League 2 and Wilson's subsequent dismissal. Mike Allen succeeded Wilson for the 2006-07 season, having recently led Brentford to the verge of promotion to Football League Championship. However, MK Dons were in contention for automatic promotion until the final game of the season, ultimately finishing 4th and securing a place in the playoffs. However, they suffered a defeat to Shrewsbury in the final playoff game. During the summer break of 2007, Allen departed to take charge of Leicester City. During this time, they also won the Beds and Berks Cup, defeating Maidenhead 2-1 at Adams Park, home of their biggest rivals, Wycombe Wanderers, fellow Buckinghamshire side. For the 2007-08 season, Paul Ince, a former England captain, assumed the role of manager. They celebrated clinching the League 2 Championship and earned promotion to League 1. Ince departed at the end of the season to manage Blackburn Rovers, following his successful tenure. Question, what was your take on relegation to League 2?
My take on relegation to League 2, I was quite upset. I felt very disappointed with the chairman and some of the transfers we had. But in all fairness, I think it sort of looked like it was coming from a mile away. I was a bit upset by certain games and certain things. I was there on the final day against Burton away, where all we needed to do was score and, we would have been through. But the goalkeeper that day, who we now have as our goalkeeper, had a mad one. Just as to say, he saved everything. That was quite upsetting coming back from there. And to be honest, just that sounds too horrible, having to just be in Burton for a bit was quite upsetting, really. It was quite cold. So
on that same relegation to League 2, I assume that when we went down, you were quite upset by it. What were your immediate reaction to what were your thoughts, where do you think we should come in the league?
What, in the next season?
Yeah, predictions, sorry.
So at the start of the year, I was feeling, I sort of thought I expected to go straight back up. I thought we'd be one of the better teams, even with the side that we had, that, to be honest, times last season in League 1, I thought were to be honest, they didn't look like they showed much energy or gave much effort. But now, I don't know. I think after we sacked the last manager, Graham Alexander, I think after he's gone, I think we've got like a bit more of a hope to get maybe like a playoff place. I think. I think the teams like Notts County and Wrexham will both be pretty high up there, and I think the fact that they've had a bit of a better start means that they'll probably end up getting the automatic places. But with the way that Mike Williamson has MK Dons playing now in almost this one-touch, like pass and move style of play, I think there's absolutely no reason why we can't get to the playoffs. And to be honest, with the other teams that could get into the playoffs, I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't win it.
So, on Alexander, he came in with quite a good reputation of getting teams out of League Two and winning games and playing a solid style of football, as he showed at Salford and Scunthorpe. Were you optimistic about Alexander?
To be honest, if I'm going to be completely truthful on it, I wasn't completely sure of his name. It's a bit like one of those with a lot of football fans. I feel like they hear a certain manager's name and go, oh yeah, I've known him all my life, sort of thing. I looked into it, I looked at some of his stats, and I thought he could be a good, apt appointment, someone that knows the level quite well. And for that reason, I thought he'd be pretty solid. But when it started to work, like obviously he got manager of the month quite quickly, I think his first month, and it all looked pretty good. But I think some of his decisions seemed a bit odd at the time, and I think some of the players got a bit annoyed by some of the stuff that he was doing. I mean, like players like now, obviously we've now got Max Dean, the striker, who's now having a great season, like unbelievable. And the fact he wasn't even getting a look in under Graham Alexander, I think said a lot. I think he struggled to deal with maybe a couple of the egos that are in the current squad. And I think that ended up being his demise at the club, really.
So after Alexander got sacked about a couple of weeks ago, who were your favourites to take that managerial spot?
To be honest, when it came to the favourites, I never really looked into it too much. I think, to be honest, the main one, and it probably would have only just been for morale and just to be like, let's get the gang back together, would have probably been Carl Robinson. Just for the fact that it just would have been, to be honest, just great vibes. Whether or not he would have been the best appointment at the time was a completely different thing. But just having back the manager that we had, I think at one point he was like the longest running manager after. I think Arsene Wenger got sacked, and then I remember seeing like a graphic on TV that he was like one of the longest running managers. And I think that would have been pretty solid. But Williamson's not a bad one. I think a couple of other managers were mentioned, maybe Danny Cowley, I think it was.
The name David Artell was thrown around quite a lot.
David Artell was thrown about a lot. Was he Newport County? Have I got that wrong?
I believe he was Crewe Alexander. He's actually now linked with the Rotherham job. So there you go.
Oh wow, well yeah. I mean, again,
quite a step up.
High prestige there. I think the other one that I saw was Danny Cowley, which I thought would be quite good. Obviously, both of the brothers from Portsmouth, I believe.
Yeah, he was at Portsmouth. Yeah, did well at Portsmouth.
He did do very well at Portsmouth. I thought that would be quite an apt one to get us maybe back up to where we were, really. But to be honest, when Williamson was appointed, I wasn't sure, but from what I watched that first game against Bradford that he had at home, and I've not seen MK Dons play that well.
I know.
In ages. It was unbelievable.
I was unfortunate to be away when that game took place, but watching the thing come through from football was ridiculous. It's games like that you think would be quite tight, but maybe it's that new manager bounce.
It was a great feeling, and I remember going on to Bradford City's Twitter page afterwards, and just all the Bradford fans that travelled down saying that's the worst we've ever played. We could have conceded 10. It was honestly a beautiful game of football to watch for MK Dons fans, and I think it got. To be honest, after that, I think that MK Dons fans have got true and real confidence in this new manager, which I think with a couple of other managers we've had, it's taken a bit of time to sort of gain that confidence. But I think he's definitely he's given MK Dons fans something positive to think about, really.
A bit of belief.
Yeah.
So a lot of people blame Pete Winkleman for sacking managers unfairly when he hasn't given them the funds to buy the players they need. How much do you agree with that statement?
I think that's sort of fair enough. I think who was it we had? I think Liam Manning getting sacked was a bit of a poor choice, to be completely honest. But I also think that the recruitment was very poor. I think what happened, obviously, when MK Dons were trying to get promoted up to the Championship, I think what we did by, getting players like Troy Parrott on loan and Carla Coventry, players that have gone on to much higher levels.
Oh, yeah.
I think some of the wages that we must have been spending, like just selling players like Scott Twine, Harry Darling, I think was genuinely just balancing the books, to be honest.
Yeah.
So trying to get like players after that, obviously we got some good players in, but to be honest, some of them were very questionable. I mean, I still have like nightmares about Bradley Johnson, if I'm completely honest with you.
Yeah, it wasn't a great signing, to be honest.
No, yeah. The thing is, yeah, it was a very stressful one. But I think he does sack managers unfairly sometimes. I think Liam Manning probably would have sorted it out. I would have, to be honest, now that obviously hindsight's a great thing.
Yeah.
But how Graham Alexander was, I think if we'd given Mark Jackson a little bit of time in League Two, we'd probably have done a similar thing.
People do say that sacking Mark Jackson could have unsettled the dressing room, making it to the next manager would have had an even harder job already trying to get a team out of League Two, but having an unsettled squad with a manager who's recently been sacked probably causes turbulence within the squad, maybe causing a run of poor results, maybe, but there you go.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. I think, so to go back on your original statement, I think he does look to blame other people very quickly. I think it was the end of obviously last season where we got relegated, and he took a while, but then he put a statement out of the little video answering questions.
Yeah. And
honestly, the want to be like a journalist when I grow up, I had to bite my tongue quite a lot on Twitter because honestly, I was going insane. It's like he's saying so much here that is just factually incorrect.
Yeah. So I'll take from that you are not particularly fond of Pete.
I think what he's doing, I think his heart's in the right place, but I feel like sometimes his head isn't. I think his reliance on certain people and bringing certain people into the limelight, that obviously was it. I think Liam Sweeting, I believe his name is, obviously not being as much in the public, but to put like a sporting director or someone that does all the transfers that far into the public image.
Yeah.
Obviously it was great when we were doing well, but then like he must have felt pretty awful after we got relegated. And I think some of the decisions he makes are poor, but I think he does do them for the good of the club. Saying that though, if I know it obviously didn't materialise because of like financial fair play or whatever.
Yeah.
But if Red Bull had taken over MK Dons, I think I would have been a bit happier.
So some people think with Pete Winkelman that you have to be kind of grateful for him because he has brought football to Milton Keynes, but people also neglect the fact that there are already football teams like lower down in the divisions already in Milton Keynes. So some people feel like it should be grateful, just be grateful because football's here. Do you agree with that?
Interesting. I don't know. I feel like what's been given, obviously, MK Dons, they've got quite a big stadium and a lot of things, and the whole experience, like fan-wise, is it's great to be there. I feel it's quite a family club. Obviously, we get fans. Sorry, carry on.
No, sorry, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we've got like fans like coming from rival teams or something, it can get a bit more dodgy. There's obviously the Wimbledon rivalry a bit, which is fair enough. But I feel like otherwise, I think the stadium's always quite a nice vibe. And I just think we're. Sorry, can you just repeat the question a little bit, please? I think I'm struggling on it.
So some people feel that they should be grateful towards Pete Winkelman just because there's football in Milton Keynes and he kind of helped bring it here. Do you agree?
I think it's. I'm not sure about being grateful for it. I think if you're going to bring it to Milton Keynes, I think you do need to have a certain level. There's no reason just to be grateful just because you're in League Two. Like, don't get me wrong. When MK Dons got into the Championship, I was grateful because that was insane at the time.
Oh yeah.
But I think some of his I remember he said I think he wanted MK Dons to be like a Premier League team in 15 years or something. So he's had some really dodgy statements put out. And I think if he could deliver on them, he'd be one of the most smart men in football. But I feel I don't think we have to be grateful just because he's brought it here, especially where we are now. Interesting one.
Part of the Stadium MK being built was with the ambition of reaching the Premier League within that 15 years, like you say. Do you think the stadium is too big for the club, or do you think it's kind of the right size for the ambition? I
think, to be honest, it is too big for the club, and I think that's why people sort of look at us a bit like we're a smaller club. Obviously, given league status, made people quite annoyed in the whole thing. So to then look at the stadium and see that we can't fill it, where, to be honest, in certain games, it has been a bit more of a bubbly atmosphere and everything. I do feel the stadium is too big though, and to be completely honest, even if it was just the top tier of the stadium, I think, and the whole image of the club probably would be, looked upon a lot greater. But for what MK Dons, I don't know, say some of the events that get put on there, I think having that top tier, and especially even like an FA Cup game or something, I think having that top tier, it does just get a bit more revenue into the club. And I think eventually, if we do become a Premier League team, I think it will prove to be quite important. But also saying that, I do think that traffic and parking stuff could be quite awkward in that area if they do get into the Premier League.
Yeah. So before we moved to Stadium MK, we had the National Hockey Ground.
Yeah.
I don't know how much memory you have of the National Hockey Ground. Have you ever been?
I believe I probably did. I think as a kid I would have gone. Yeah. I would have had less knowledge of it. I think I might have gone with my granddad and my mum to see him play Brentford there once. But to be completely honest, my memory of it is foggy. I've seen pictures, but to be honest, it's always been something that I'm not entirely sure on, sort of thing. But no, I've not really ever been there. No.
Because some people, I've spoken to other Dons fans over text message, that they have their memories of the National Hockey Ground feel like that ground was a much better fit for the club. It had a bit more atmosphere because it was more packed. If you look at the attendances over time, that ground only has 7,000 capacity, and we're still getting about 8,000 to 9,000 a week anyway. So maybe a ground more like that would be more suitable.
Yeah, possibly. I think that if it was a bit smaller, I think it would give it a bit more of maybe an atmosphere and a fortress sort of feel. But I also don't see it as that big of an issue. It would be nice to have a bit more of a big feel. But like you say, maybe because of the how big it is, I think that does create the more family appeal. If it was more close together and you could hear fans saying and screaming things, I think you'd get a bit more tribalism. Whereas I think MK Dons, of all the teams that I've ever seen or watched or been to, I think it does give that more of a vibe that kids can go and just enjoy themselves. Whereas, I don't know, say a team like Leeds maybe might have a bit more of a hostile environment due to the fact that it's not. I'm actually not sure. I think that Ellen Road and same MK might be a similar size, but I also might have just made that up completely.
I do believe they are within about 5,000 of each other, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it'd be quite close.
But yeah.
But yeah, I would say, I say that the fact that it's not the smaller sort of stadium, it does make it feel more family run, and I think that's good for the community having the football like that, basically.
Yeah. So the Stadium MK obviously hosts a lot of other events. So, obviously music and things like that. Parking becomes an issue then. But even when it's not football, Pete Winkleman still charges for apparently quite an extortionate amount for parking outside the ground. How do you feel about that? 'Cause some people feel like he's kind of milking whatever fans the club do have.
I feel, let's just say, with music and stuff, I feel like a lot of it is probably more external and not to do with the fans. Obviously, you will get people that are fans of the club that will go to them, say the Take That One or the My Chemical Romance thing. But I had friends from where I lived at uni in Derby that had come down to Milton Keynes. So I think, just charging them, making them come down and charging them, I think they'll obviously need somewhere to park and everything. And I think in the grand scheme of things, I think it does help the club out. I don't think they can really complain too much because it does make their journey a bit more convenient. And I would say that I'd say the parking is probably a bit tight just because of how hard it is to really get out. But I think having that security of being able to park with a big event like that, I mean, I've never been to one properly, but I assume that they go onto the pitch as well, and there's flooring and stuff put down, so they get more tickets than what are all the seated ones and everything.
Yeah.
I'd say that I think it probably, given that security and the sort of, I guess the level of that, I think the money coming in, the income is pretty solid, really.
So the capacity of the stadium's never really ever been maxed out, even when Man United came to play. It does reach its peak when we play Wimbledon at home. That is normally the peak of the season, attendance-wise. What's your kind of feel of AFC Wimbledon?
My feel of them, I think that, to be honest, I think the whole rivalry now is a little bit childish. I can understand maybe, like back in the day, that obviously they would have had quite a lot of anger in the same way. If it happened the other way around, it would have been a similar thing. Yeah. But I think holding on to that anger is just, I think it just seems a bit poor now, and I think a lot more fans, maybe from outside of the two teams, sort of look at it and think maybe it isn't as big of a deal. Obviously, there are certain people that still hold the grudge towards MK Dons.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there is, I think under someone tweeting online that wasn't a fan of either, is like growing up is realising that Wimbledon fans actually should have supported their club a bit better, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously that, it's not their fault, they had to move, but if they did follow them and everything, like, it wouldn't have been easy for them, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say it would be, but I think if they, supported them a little bit more, then they wouldn't have had the situation that they had.
Yeah.
So I think to be honest, I can understand their anger, but from MK Dons fan point of view, I'm not going to take any sympathy on them, and I'm gonna say that I think it's just a bit childish, and they should probably move on a little bit now, because they've got their old stadium back, I believe.
Yeah, they've got a ground that's usually called New Plough Lane, but it's currently branded as the Cherry Red Record Stadium. Yeah, they've got their old stomping ground back. So
I think they have received certain things back, and I do think they're as their own club, they are now the same thing. I do find it a bit mental though when they do try and say they're the same club that have won all the different things, because they also have put out tweets before about we're the first club in this the whatever century to get into a playoffs or whatever and all this sort of thing. And I think, I mean, if I could find the tweet, I'd send it to you. But the one tweet that MK Dons fans use quite strongly, just to be like, well, we actually are Wimbledon and all this.
Yeah.
But I'd say I personally have no sympathy for them, really.
Yeah. So with Wimbledon, they obviously won the FA Cup in 1980, which was a big achievement, not just for Wimbledon, but for all of football, really, to beat Liverpool.
Yeah.
How do you think MK Dons have a claim to that FA Cup, or do you think it's a different entity?
I mean, the MK Dons, realistically, if I'm going to be honest, have absolutely no claim to it. Okay. But if I ever had to wind up a fan online, I'd go MK Dons beat Liverpool in the FA Cup. And I have done it multiple times. And it's one of them where some people buy it and some people don't.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't think MK Dons have got any link to it. It's a complete rebrand, obviously, with MK Dons. And I think the only thing they can really claim, as a trophy, was, I believe at the time, was the Johnston's Paint Trophy. But honestly, with the way that name changes, I'm a bit lost, to be honest. But I don't think there's any link to the FA Cup.
Yeah, because some people like to separate almost Dons and Wimbledon and AFC from Wimbledon. So I take you view old Wimbledon, as it were, as a entire separate entity as MK Dons?
Would I see him as separate? And I think that, I don't know, because obviously Dean Lumington, I believe, was what used to be a former Wimbledon player.
David
and
Martin
obviously carried on. Pardon, what was that?
David Martin as well, who came back last season,
Yeah, so obviously I think I don't think you can separate the entities too far just based on that as a basic thing. I think there is past history there, but I think for MK Dons fans to say they own that history would be a bit silly, really. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like making the jokes and everything, but I do believe they are sort of two separate entities. But obviously the link will always be there, that I guess we used to be another club. It really depends how you look at it, really. I think there's more fans that would probably maybe have supported Wimbledon that maybe might say that they, I never really supported Wimbledon. I started supporting them when they were MK Dons, just based on when I was born and how it all sort of worked out. But I'm sure there'll be loads of MK Dons fans that will sort of identify a little bit as the Wimbledon. There's a shirt that used to be a former MK Dons one that's the blue, and it's got the thing on it. It's got Love MK on the front or something like that as a sponsor. And I think there'll be certain fans that do look at it as the same club. But if I'm completely honest, I do believe there are sort of two separate sort of entities, really.
Yeah. So we're going to do some quick fire questions, kind of round it out, I guess.
Yeah, cool.
Favourite player of all time?
I would go for, oh god, MK Dons. We got quick fire. I personally, to be honest, if I had to go off it, I'll try and do the next one more quick. But Scott Twine, I think he's genuinely one of the best players I've ever seen play football.
Fair enough. Favourite manager?
Favourite manager, I would go for Carl Robinson, personally.
Least favourite player?
Least favourite player? Rob Hall.
Who's that, Rob Ball?
Rob Hall, sorry. He came to us and he was just a bit of a... I think everyone else look at him as a little bit of a snake, really. Or did you want least favourite player from another club or just MK in itself?
Oh, no, MK, sorry, I should probably specify.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want a least favourite player, then Lyle Taylor.
FC Wimbledon top goal scorer, of course.
He winds me up. I don't like him.
Worst memory being a Dons fan?
Worst memory being a Dons fan. To be honest, I think the Burton game is probably up there, but honestly, losing that second leg playoff against Wickham after the season that we've had really hit us. That was a horrible experience.
Not only losing a playoff, not only losing to your rival, but after a really good season, yeah.
Oh, it really, it stunk. I remember walking out of the stadium just completely quiet.
What was your best memory being a Dons fan?
I think when we got promoted back up to League One after beating Mansfield on the final day, and just how we played on that game was pretty impressive, to be honest.
Pitch invasion as well, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've still got a video of me and my dad sort of celebrating that, going quite mental after the final whistle went, and then going on the pitch. It was quite a good day, that one.
Any players you would like to see join the Dons in January?
Any players I'd like to see join? Interesting. I'd probably have to give a bit more time, to be honest, in quick fire.
No, you can take as much time as you needed that one. I guess that's quite a long-winded question.
I'd say I want a new goalkeeper. I'm really not convinced on Craig McGilvery at all. And I think another striker, because to be honest, I think either Leko or Issa probably going out the door, I think, in January. Ideally more Leko. I think Issa obviously has still got what he did in the season when we nearly went back up to the Championship. But I think looking at another striker would be a good sign. I'm not entirely sold on Ellis Harrison either, really.
No.
Probably another striker and a goalkeeper.
What's your earliest memory being a Dons fan?
Earliest memory? I mean, possibly, to be honest, being a proper Dons fan, obviously I used to go to a couple of games as a kid. But I think my first ever game I ever properly really remember was in the Championship. And we lost 1-0 to Preston, and I remember coming out the stadium and I thought we played really well. And I remember a guy saying, there's no way we last in this season. And I was like, what are you on about? We'll be absolutely fine. But let's say that was the first ever game that I properly remember, and
What's your take on Dan Kemp now? I don't expect this to be a one-word answer, but would you like to see him come back?
Yeah, I think I would. I didn't expect that, to be honest. I would like to see him come back. I think he was frozen out by Graham Alexander. I think that's another reason that Graham Alexander probably isn't as good as a manager as he thinks he is.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him come back. I'm not entirely sure how much Jack Payne's got. I'm not sure if he's just till January on loan or if he's until the end of the year.
Yeah.
But as a replacement for that, especially how he's been doing for Swindon, I think he's got to be up there for the most goal contributions in the league, I think, because some of his goals and assists.
If nothing else, just to cause chaos at Swindon.
I would take him back as probably a sort of someone that can maybe learn from Jack Payne or replace him, to be honest.
Yeah. And finally, what is your prediction for the rest of the season?
I think that it will be a very, very weird season where we'll go on to beat. Obviously, I think we'll beat Wimbledon this weekend, which will be the big one. But I think it will be a case that we'll beat teams such as Wrexham or something. We'll beat Wrexham, and then I think we'll end up losing to some of the smaller teams that are struggling in the league, Forest Green or something. But I think we'll finish in the playoffs, and I think we'll have enough energy to at least get to Wembley, and I think we'll probably win it.
Oh, thank you very much for that. It was brilliant. Thank you.
No problem, mate.
I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed talking to him. But let's continue where we left off. During the Pauline season, MK Dons won their only trophy as the MK Dons. The 2007-08 Football League Trophy, better known as the Johnson's Paint Trophy, or as everyone still calls it to this day, the JPT. On their way to Wembley, they beat Peterborough 3-1, Bournemouth 2-0, Gillingham after 90 minutes was 1-0, but they won 5-4 on penalties. They lost to Swansea away in the second leg, but thankfully they beat Swansea at Swansea's home, in the first leg. And they did eventually win 5-4 on penalties. So, in front of 56,618 people at Wembley, they beat fellow League Two side Grimsby 2-0 on the 30th of March 2008. Long-time centre-back Sean O'Hanlon scored in the 81st, and defensive midfielder Keith Andrews scored in the 74th minute with a well-taken penalty. This was the first time New Wembley had hosted a final. Long-time player and two-time manager and current club captain Dean Lewington lifted the trophy. Roberto Di Matteo, a former Chelsea player, took over as Paul Ince's successor, marking his first managerial role. In the 2008-09 season, MK Dons narrowly missed out on automatic promotion, finishing third behind Peterborough and Leicester City by a mere 2 points. Their playoff hopes were dashed by Scunthorpe, who defeated them in a penalty shootout at the Stadium MK. Di Matteo departed at the end of the season to join West Brom, but a year later Ince returned as manager for the 2009-10 season. He resigned from the club on April 16th, but he continued till the conclusion of the season. The Carl Robinson era was kick-started on the 10th of May 2010, with John Gorman as his assistant. At the time of his appointment, Robinson, who was only 29 years old at the time, became the youngest manager in the Football League. In the 2010-11 League One season, MK Dons finished 5th and faced Peterborough United in the playoff semi-final. Despite winning the first leg 2-1, they suffered a 2-0 defeat at London Road, resulting in a 3-2 loss on aggregate, and missing out on the playoff final. The following season, 2011-12, saw similar results for the MK Dons, as they finished 5th in League One and faced Huddersfield in the playoffs. After losing the first leg 2-0, they managed to win the second leg 2-1 at the Gal Farm. However, their efforts were not enough as they lost 3-2 on aggregate against the eventual playoff winners. The away leg marked John Gorman's retirement from football, having announced it a few weeks prior. On the 18th of May 2012, Mick Harford, a former Luton manager, was announced as Gorman's replacement, along with Ian Wright, who joined as new part-time coach. MK Dons had a remarkable FA Cup campaign in the 2012-13 season, achieving their best performance in the competition. They triumphed over Cambridge City, 0-0 and 6-1 over 2 legs, AFC Wimbledon 2-1, Sheffield Wednesday 0-0 and 2-0, replays obviously, Queen's Park Rangers 4-2, to reach a 5th round for the first time in their history. However, their record-breaking run did come to an end on the 16th of February 2013, when they lost 3-1 to Barnsley at the Stadium MK. Despite being in the top 5 most of the season, the club finished the 2013-14 League One season in 10th place. The 2014-15 season started off on a positive note. The standout moment of the first month was being drawn against Man United in the League Cup, second round, after defeating AFC Wimbledon in the first round. In front of a sold-out crowd at the Stadium MK, MK Dons achieved a stunning 4-0 victory over Manchester United. A few weeks later, they set a new record with a 6-0 thrashing of Colchester at home. This record was short-lived as they passed it once again with a dominant 7-0 win over Oldham Athletic on the 20th of December 2014. On the 31st of January 2015, the Dons secured a joint record 5-0 away win against Crewe Alexandra, briefly claiming the top spot. Finally, on the 3rd of May, they secured promotion to the Football League Championship for the first time, defeating Yeovil 5-1 and overtaking Preston North End on the final day of the season. Preston lost 1-0 to Colchester United. Dons made a strong start to life in the Championship, winning 4-1 against Rotherham on the opening day of the season and earning 7 points from their first 4 games. However, they were unable to maintain this form throughout the season. In their final 11 games, they failed to secure a victory, ultimately finishing 23rd in the Championship and being relegated back to League One. This disappointing outcome led to Carl Robinson's departure from the club on the 23rd of October 2016. Following a 3-0 home defeat against Southend. Robbie Neilson assumed the role of MK Dons manager following his departure from Heart of Midlothian in Scotland. The team's first official game under his leadership was a victorious FA Cup match against Charlton Athletic. Neilson's tenure began on a high note with wins over AFC Wimbledon and Northampton Town in their local derby. However, the subsequent season got off to a rocky start. The team's noteworthy 1-0 win against Peterborough was marred by controversial referee decisions and 13 minutes of added time. So this was probably before in the Premier League now where added time has to be exact. This is probably when it'd be just 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. During which they played with only 9 men for 68 minutes. After a string of poor results, Nilsson left the club by mutual consent. His successor, Dan Micici struggled to improve the team's performance. Micici? I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry. Was eventually replaced by assistant Keith Millen, who served as caretaker. The team was relegated to League Two on the penultimate weekend of the season after a series of disappointing results. Tisdale, the former Exeter manager, took on the role in June 2018 following his 12-year tenure at the previous club. Throughout the season, the Dons were regarded as strong contenders for promotion and consistently maintained positions near the top of the league table. In November, they claimed top spot after convincing 2-0 triumph over Macclesfield Town. However, their performance gradually declined, and by February they had slipped to 8th place. In the penultimate game, they narrowly missed out on automatic promotion with a 2-0 loss against Colchester United, resulting in a crucial winner-takes-all match against Mansfield. The Dons emerged triumphant with a 1-0 victory in front of an audience of nearly 21,000, securing their return to League One. Away days, good videos on with that game. Pitch invasions and flares and aggro. I'll go watch a matchday vlog from it, go and watch there. I might even link it in the description. Regrettably, the Dons had a disappointing start to the 1920 season, managing to earn only 1 point out of a possible 27. This unfortunate streak of results marked the club's worst run in its history. Consequently, Tisdale's contract was mutually terminated on the 2nd of November 2019, following a 3-1 home defeat against relegation-threatened Tranmere Rovers. The very next day, Russell Martin was announced as the new permanent first-team manager, having previously joined the club as a player earlier in the year. However, the season came to an abrupt halt on the 13th of March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Eventually, the clubs collectively decided to prematurely conclude the season on 9th of June 2020, using an unweighted points per game system to determine the final standings. As a result, the Dons finished in 19th place, successfully avoiding relegation. In the 21-2022 League One season, the Dons had an opportunity to secure automatic promotion to the Championship during the final weekend. Additionally, there's a slight chance, very small chance for them to be champions if they achieved a significant victory and other results favoured them. Impressively, they emerged triumphant with a resounding 5-0 win over Plymouth Argyle. However, both Wigan and Rotherham secured 2 automatic promotion spots while winning their respective matches against Shrewsbury and Gillingham. Despite the Dons' strong performance, they ultimately finished the season in a commendable position. After the 2021-22 season, MK Dons were relegated, appointing Mark Jackson too near the end. He was unproven and it was not a good appointment. There's a game that stands out, Barnsley, which was a finished 4-4 at home. Third last game of the season. We were 4-1 up, and that was the game that sealed our fate, because 3 points probably would have pulled us out of it a bit. Anyway, let's talk about Alexander. Graham Alexander was appointed as new head coach of MK Dons on the 27th of May 2023. However, after a series of 8 matches without a win, Alexander was dismissed from his position, with Dons languishing in 16th place. He also won Manager of the Month in his second or first season in charge, which is a bit of a habit for him. He wins Manager of the Month, then goes on awful runs and gets sacked. But on the 17th of October 2023, MK Dons announced the appointment of Mike Williamson, the former Gateshead manager, as their new coach. Since then, look, brand new side, honestly. 4-1 at Bradford, 4-2 at home to Swindon, 4-2 at Salford. He's been really good. Yeah, we drew to Newport, lost to Reading. Another one we lost, but I can't remember which one. But he's looked good. He's looked really, really good. But with the sack of Alexander, there's a bit of a sentiment of just be grateful for the football being here amongst a kind of a group of fans that kind of murmur, but not loud enough for you really bothered by it. The argument was often made that football would have ended up being here anyway, and that something was going to happen. MK City were going to come up from Stony Stratford, Wolverton, whatever. A team would come up, basically. People also toyed with Pete Winkleman selling up, but you have to ask who to. But to be honest, I do quite like the idea of Red Bull Milton Keynes. I mean, let me know in the comments if that sounds like an exciting prospect. But let's backtrack to around 2007. This was when the state-of-the-art 30,500 seater stadium was built. They moved from the National Hockey Stadium. They went from around 7,000 capacity, which they couldn't fill weekly, to 30,500 or 30,500, which they definitely can't fill. The new stadium is situated near Asda and IKEA, and it's based in the centre of a shopping centre called MK1, which isn't the smartest of home games come around. It makes the traffic unbearable because you've got the shopping centre, the Burger King, the restaurants, the shopping, the Asda, the IKEA. that over the road you've got the Aldi, the Food Warehouse, and it's all really too close. But this stadium could have had a different team playing in it. I brought up MK City a little earlier because they were looking to build a stadium in Milton Keynes. People that built the MK Dons Stadium. But due to them only being a Spartan South Midland League 4 divisions below the Football League, they just couldn't justify building a stadium for them. One of the reported reasons this massive and some say pointless stadium was built was to show ambition of reaching the Premier League. There was an interview that came out that Pete Winkleman wanted to reach the Premier League in 15 years. I believe it's going to be, it's been 20 years and they've only technically regressed. The first game was a restricted entrance against a very young Chelsea 11. This stadium is also used for England women and England youth game. I actually went to go see England under-20s play Portugal there. It was a really good experience. In the December of 2009, MK Dons was granted the status of candidate host city by the FA. If England had been successful in their bid, Stadium MK would have been selected to host several games, but this would require a increased capacity to 44,000. Unfortunately, on December 2nd, 2010, FIFA ultimately decided against awarding the World Cup to England. It was reported in late 2014 that during a renovation at White Hart Lane, Tottenham could play some games at Stadium MK. Whee! And some others at Wembley. Whee! There was much anger with Tottenham fans, and the FA put this idea to paper saying you can't ground share two stadiums, and Tottenham obviously chose Wembley because it's geographically closer. Spurs did play one game at Stadium MK versus Watford in front of 22,650 people. This was supported by former MK Dons player and current Everton player Dele Alli. In women's, it hosted a Women's FA Cup final between Arsenal and Everton. The stadium's record attendance was a Rugby World Cup match between Fiji and Uruguay with an attendance of 30,048, which means the stadium has technically never been at full capacity. So yeah, average attendances peaked in 2015-16 under Carl Robinson when the club was in the Championship. I assume this was helped by travelling fans of clubs like Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds and Burnley, which take a lot of fans with them wherever they go really, because they're obviously quite big clubs. The last attendance, including the COVID season, the current season, as we're only 9 games in as I'm writing, is actually 2004-05 with an average of 4,896 at National Hockey Stadium. Speaking of the National Hockey Stadium, which hosted Wimbledon 2003-04, England Hockey from 1995-2003 and MK Dons 2004-2007, was a 9,000 seater stadium in Milton Keynes. Its record attendance was 8,306 versus Tottenham in the League Cup third round. Its highest average attendance was 6,034 when the club was in League 2. This was probably because people had maybe started to come around to the idea of this new team in Milton Keynes. In 2010, after Dons had moved, the owners of the ground sold it to Network Rail and became Quadrant MK, Network Rail's National Operations Centre. England Hockey moved to Lee Valley Hockey and Tennis Stadium. The only player to survive the transition is the son of Crystal Palace manager Ray Lewington, Dean Lewington. He survived the transition between Wimbledon to MK Dons. He has made over 800 appearances for the Dons in nearly 20 years of being with the club. He's also been caretaker twice in 2021 and 2022 with a record of 1 win, 1 draw, 2 losses, leaving him with a 25% win rate as manager. In the words of other respected MK Dons players, we can't make video talking about Dele Alli, who initially started with City Colts under-12s, who currently operate in Division 2 of the under-12 MKDDL. He joined the MK Dons Academy, now known as MK Dons Set, at age 11. At 16, he made a debut for MK as a 64th minute substitute for Jay O'Shea. He made a combined total of 74 appearances and scored 22 goals across 2 stints. On the 2nd of February 2015, he signed for Tottenham for £5 million, which is big money for MK by the way. He went straight back on loan till the end of the season. Obviously, after that he did well at Spurs, had a rocky time so far, Everton went out on loan to Besiktas. So we're now going to go see MK Dons play and see if any other names can maybe write themselves in history for good goals or howlers. So it's a 7:45 PM kickoff against Grimsby in League 2. So as of the time of writing, Grimsby are currently 21st in League 2. Some notable players are Abu Issa, who is a full Sudanese international, and brother of also full Sudanese international, Mo Issa, who's the MK Dons striker. Danny Rose, who won promotion with Stevenage last year but decided to stay in League 2 with Grimsby. Otis Khan, who is a full Pakistan international. And lastly, you have Harry Clifton, who made 198 appearances for Grimsby, their longest serving player. He has been linked to clubs from the leagues above, mainly Laurie Sanchez's former club, Wickham, a few years back, was always stayed loyal to Grimsby. And you have to respect a player like that. It's going to cost me £8 to get in, and I have to pay for an under 21 ticket. And I'll sit where I sit most weeks in a place called the Cowshed, which is supposedly the loudest part of the area, but it's normally the away end. I'm gonna keep this real with you. I'll keep it 100. The away end is always definitely louder, unless like you bring in Salfords, who bring no fans with them, which is weird. Before we cut to the game, we talk about ticket prices. Adults is £24, but they always charge an extra £2 on the day. So I've always spoken on 21 tickets. Under 14s will be £3, over 65s £18, and under 25s is £12. It seems like a lot, but I don't really have much frame of reference. Adults is definitely £24 is a bit steep. Pete Winkleman likes to drain money. I'm not even going to talk about the parking situation. But anyway, let's ignore that and let's go and enjoy the game. A break in play, bit of an injury. Oh, Grimsby fans. Could open in 6 minutes. Fucking Grimsby scored. First shot of the game, not bad. This is Jack Payne territory. The Jack Payne territory this goes in. I mean, you may well sky that.
Number 3, Anthony Bennett, has been replaced by number 29, Alex Hunt.
The spiders everywhere. Just latched onto my phone. Anyway. Got a feeling this is in. Just got a feeling. Inkling this might go in. Jack Payne Tomlinson standing over it. Last time Jack Payne had a free kick in this kind of situation, he scored it against Bradford. Bradford 4-1 that was. Not bad. Come on. Come on. See Bruno, it's far over. Ooh! Unlucky. 7 minutes at a time. Very big 7 minutes we can fucking score. That doesn't look likely. Jesus Christ. You wouldn't think Grimsby are down the bottom, would you? Half time, 1-0 down. Awful. Not slow on the ball, slow off the ball. Man marking. Not as a bet, we've had about 2 shots. Just not look good. Just not look good enough. Not the Mike Williams team we've come to expect over the last few weeks, but hopefully the second half will be a bit like Salford. Turn up, score 4, bosh, done. I don't appreciate showing adverts to your paying fans. Yeah, not a fan of that, but that's what it is. Second half better be a darn sight better. Fucking Jack Payne! Come on!
MK goal scorer number 11, Jack Payne!
Tapping, it's tapping. Don't want getting gas, it's tapping. Great goal though, it's good. Get a second now! I mean, fucking hell. Yeah, not a great second half. Had loads of chances, couldn't fucking take them. Easter missed a sitter. Literally open goal, missed it. Pathetic, really. That's why it doesn't start. Not a great performance, to be honest, but not got a game Saturday, so it's okay. So my voice sounds fucked as good as it is. I'm gonna go Macca's quick. I'm gonna get a burger. I'm hungry. Alright, I'll talk about it in a bit. Yeah, the atmosphere was good. It's just not the Dons we've been used to seeing, to be honest. Very disappointing. I'm gonna have to keep walking around. How much further can I go? I'm going on the grass. Yeah, not the Dons we're used to seeing. It's very toothless. But Grimsby are a very defensive team, unfortunately. Not very attacking either. But they do set up. They set up to keep us under control, and they did exactly that. Fair enough to them. Yeah, it's just it's what it is, really. It's not. I don't feel like it's a point lost. I feel like it's a point gained in a way. Issa could have definitely won it for us right at the end if he could take a bloody chance. But so it's walking around trying not to look weird, so I'm going to have to keep walking around the Denby North Retail Park and circle McDonald's because burgers gone up in price. Anyway, so unfortunate. This is what it is really. Got Brighton 21s at home next on Tuesday. Not going to it because I'm making videos. So yeah, unfortunate. So in conclusion, whether you love or hate MK, it's unfair to say they're a bad side. I think you have to distance old Wimbledon and MK and treat them as two separate entities with slightly intertwining history. I mean, I say slightly, very intertwining history. My final remarks are, go to your local team while it's still there. Just enjoy football for football. But yeah, I believe the reason they're so hated is Milton Keynes had to buy a football team to make it big. Even in MK, some people are divided and don't like them because they killed a club. I don't hate them. I go there every week. I can't. But I dislike how football actually reached Milton Keynes. It's kind of ironic how AFC Wimbledon, as of recording, are now in the same division as MK. So was it all worth it? That's for you to decide. On that note, after months, like 2 months of doing this, thank you for watching. I will see you at some point very soon. There will be an after show posted in a few weeks about making this video because it's been a lot of effort. And that'll be in the podcast section of the channel. But finally, on that note, peace.